of its people. When we open our hearts to patriotism, there is no room for prejudice, no place for bigotry, and no tolerance for hate.
All right, that was President Trump last night. This was his speech about strategy in Afghanistan, but you might have noticed those words not at all about Afghanistan, very much about his response, his much criticized response to the violence in Charlottesville. Let's talk about this with CNN political commentators Shermichael Singleton and Jennifer Psaki. Also with us, Susan Page, the Washington bureau chief for USA Today. You know, and Susan, I noted last hour, that statement last night, not like the president's first response to Charlottesville, sort of like his second response to Charlottesville, but then not like his third response to Charlottesville or everything we've heard since then. So how believable is it, Susan?
Well, let's see what he says tonight in Arizona when he's not presumably going to be reading off a teleprompter the way he was last night. Will he be talking about love and acceptance and tolerance and the importance to treat our neighbors as we would wish to be treated by ourselves? Or will we hear the kind of language that we traditionally have heard at Trump rallies, which is a little more raucous and a little more designed for his core, to rally his core supporters?
Shermichael, what will we? It has always seemed to me the easiest thing in the world for President Trump to do exactly what Susan Page just said. Go to Phoenix. Just read out loud what you said last night at the top of your speech about Afghanistan, and then everyone will say, okay, maybe, time to move on. Can he do that?
Well, we most certainly know that he has the ability to do so. Recall Monday's remarks and then translate to Tuesday off the cuff was a complete disaster. Look, I think the president has to keep in mind, though he was elected by many of the people that will probably be at the rally tonight, he's the president of the United States of America. And as president, you not only speak to the individuals who voted for you, you not only speak to the quote-unquote red states or blue states, you speak to the collective, this great collective we call the United States. And so I think the president has to be cognizant of that at this rally tonight. And I'm almost certain a lot of Republicans will be watching this, because for many in the party, they're beginning to wonder what's next. Can the president show some stability and discernment, particularly on this issue? Because what you risk is isolating a lot of Americans. I'm an African American, happen to be a Republican. If there are other minorities in the party, I think it's legitimate to beg the question, is there a place in a party for diverse people if this type of rhetoric is tolerated? And I think the president needs to make it clear that it's not.
Do I sense anxiety or uncertainty in your voice about whether or not he's capable of that?
You most certainly do. I think if you look at history, it would tell us that we just aren't sure what President Trump will or won't say tonight. But, you know, I got to have some level of confidence in him, as I would have in any individual. I think the president is well aware of his remarks Tuesday and the negative connotation that a lot of people received from what they heard and what they saw. And I think it is becoming upon him to make the right steps to correct that error, and it's my hope that he will. I can't say with certainty, but it's my hope.
You know, Jen Psaki, this is not just about President Trump right now. This is about the United States of America and sentiment in the United States of America. And overnight in Charlottesville at this city council meeting, we saw a lot of anger. We saw a lot of people very upset still. In this case, they were specifically upset about how that city had responded to the hate rally, the Unite the Right rally there, and people were, you know, complaining about the police response and whatnot. But you can see how nerves are rubbed raw. And obviously, I don't think people will dispute that the president's response to Charlottesville only made the situation worse. But what's the way out of this as we look at this anger, Jen?
Well, look, I think first, you know, one president's scripted remarks in a speech are not going to heal the pain that the country is feeling from what he said repeatedly last week. So he does have a role. He's contributed to this in a significant way. But this has always been addressing racial issues, racial challenges, racial issues with the police is always going to be local, something that needs to happen at the local level. And working for President Obama, as I did for almost 10 years, he felt that way. Now, I think he played much more of a role in healing the country than the current president has, clearly, but he felt this needed to be discussions and debates. Sometimes they're going to be tense, sometimes they're going to be disagreements at the local level. And so I think what we saw last night was that there's still a lot of pain, there's still a lot of hurt about what happened last week, how the president responded, how a number of people responded, and I don't think that's going to be healed, including by the president, until there's a lot more conversations and debates, and that we hear more from the president on a consistent basis about how he wants to bring the country together instead of just a one-off written speech.
All right, response to Afghanistan. There was criticism from an interesting front about the president's, what he calls, new strategy in relation to Afghanistan last night. If you looked at BREITBART overnight, they had a whole bunch of headlines not particularly flattering. The one that caught my eye, President Trump's America First base unhappy with flip-flop Afghanistan speech. You know, Susan Page, is Breitbart laying down a bit of a gauntlet here, saying, look, you know, we're here. We're not going to let you forget what you told some of us in your base. Oh, and by the way, hi, I'm Steve Bannon.
Yeah, exactly. Steve Bannon left the White House on Friday. It is on Monday that Breitbart unleashed really a torrent of criticism of the president for changing course from some of his campaign positions when it comes to whether to stay in Afghanistan and, in fact, to double down with even more troops there. And it's clear that Steve Bannon is devoted to an ideology, not to a person, that he's going to unleash Breitbart's fury when President Trump does things he disagrees with. And the question here is, will the president's core supporters be swayed by Breitbart, or will they listen to the arguments that President Trump made last night in making his case for Afghanistan? And here's another question. Was the speech a one-off for President Trump, or will he return and try to make the case to Americans that America's longest war is one that needs to go on a while more?
It's interesting. Will he keep talking about Afghanistan in other forums as well? All right, guys, anytime I do a panel and I can get unanimity, I think it's a great thing. I think we're going to get unanimity on this next subject right now, which is that the Daily Caller, for whatever reason, because they did not have enough to do, because the eclipse wasn't enough to keep them happy, decided to criticize the clothing worn by Barron Trump. The headline was, you know, it's about time the president's son starts dressing the part. Some might suggest it's about time the Daily Caller, you know, keeps opinions like this to itself. People like Chelsea Clinton, let me read this, I have it right here. Chelsea Clinton, in other words, says, it's high time the media and everyone leave Barron Trump alone and let him have the private childhood he deserves. Here's Michael. Of course everyone should let him have the childhood he deserves. Of course the Daily Caller should be criticizing his T-shirt, which, by the way, I like and would wear myself because it's a very nice shade of red.
I mean, John, he's a kid, for Christ's sake. You know, sometimes I think we really go too far in our political rhetoric and the things we tend to focus on. Allow him to be a kid. Yes, he's a kid in the White House, but at the end of the day, he should have all of the fun and explorations as any other typical American kid. And if that means wearing a shirt and basketball shorts and maybe even a baseball cap if he wants to, let him do that. Let him enjoy being young, because I can guarantee you when he gets older, he's going to wish he was young again.
You can wear that cap backwards if you want to. Jen Psaki, you know, you've been inside communication shops before. If you're inside the White House and you see something like that from the Daily Caller, you know, what do you do? Do you call? Do you threaten them? Do you just try to make it go away by ignoring it? Do you just say this is just some site trying to, you know, get clicks?
Well, you know the mama grizzly in the White House right now, of which there's always one. So maybe Melania Trump now, it was Michelle Obama and Hillary Clinton before that, is probably pretty angry. And I think any White House staffer will know that. So what we would do, and I would say the media was quite receptive to that, is really appeal to people's humanity and appeal to people as parents, not just reporters, as parents, not just editors, about the fact that kids should always be off limits. I don't care if Barron Trump wears a rainbow tutu and a sparkly T-shirt and has black eye makeup on. Nobody should be writing about it. He's a kid.
All right, guys. Agreed. As I said, unanimity, a rare thing, but we did achieve it today. You know, Michael, Jen, Susan, thanks so much. Good discussion.
Thanks, John.
Thanks.
All right, divers find the remains in the search for the 10 missing sailors of the USS McCain. We have new developments just ahead.